Good afternoon all and welcome to the first Armidale Regional Council meeting in 2019. Now, our civic prayer, Almighty God, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Please guide our hearts and minds in a spirit of fairness, right thought and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today to the advancement and true welfare of our people and of Australia. Amen. Recognition of traditional owners. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to elders past and present. The Armidale regional community pays tribute to their love of land, love of people and love of culture. We all share the beauty of this land, the richness of its soil and the uniqueness of its wildlife. Let us walk together in the footsteps of love and understanding. While valuing diversity, let us share in the same hope for a better future. Now, just to warn you, the meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording of the non-confidential parts of the meeting will be made available on the internet. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by council to do so. Those people who are having your say, all speakers are requested to ensure their comments are relevant to the particular agenda item. The chairperson may withdraw the privilege to speak where a speaker makes personal remarks or criticism or uses abusive or inappropriate language. Speakers do not enjoy any special protection arising from comments made during council meetings and should therefore refrain from making defamatory remarks or personal defamatory statements against any individual. And anyone having their say, they will have a 5-minute period, and I will warn them at the 4-minute mark. So thank you. Please seat. Now, we have an apologies from Councillor Gray. Could I have a mover or a seconder? Councillor Martin, Councillor Robertson. Those in favour? Carried. Declaration of interest and disclosure. I would like to start off in item 11.2 that I have a non-pecuniary interest. I have met the developer on a number of occasions, always with another councillor or with staff members, and I do not believe that those meetings preclude me from taking part in any decision-making process. So any other declarations? Councillor Merritt?
Similar, I have
and Councillor Bayer, that was referring to 11.2. Yes, thank you. Any other declarations of interest?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, mine's also 11.2. I had several dealings with the applicant when I was the administrator, but not since.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, can you all pull your microphones? I think they're trying to catch the spiders on the roof, but thank you. So, we coming to have your say. There's a Ms. Elizabeth O'Hara, which to speak to two items, 8.6 and 11.3. Is Ms. O'Hara here?
I believe Elizabeth O'Hara cancelled her have your say. She thought that some of the issues might be already being dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson, that's for both items, was it, or just the one item? She's got listed for two.
This was for both items.
Thank you. So, moving on to item 6, which is confirmation of minutes. Could I have a mover and a seconder for those, please? Councillor Martin, Councillor Murat. Are there any problems in these minutes from December meeting? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, I do want to move a mayoral minute, which you should all have a copy of. And that the motion is that the Mayor write to the head of all agencies involved in managing the Tingha Plateau fire and pass on Armidale Regional Council's gratitude. So could I have a seconder for that, please, Councillor Morat? Yes, just to give you information, I was fortunate enough to spend a day out there at the Tingha fire when it was actually going through Tingha, and really appreciate the workload that the Royal Fire Service did. Also the rescue and fire, and forestry involved. So there's a lot of agencies involved, and I think it's appropriate that council submit this letters to the heads of the organisations as a matter of gratitude for their efforts, their volunteers' efforts. Any person wish to speak against or for? Okay, I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Moving on to items 8.1, Cemetery and Crematorium Regulations 2018. Before we move on to that, I'd like to ask our CEO to provide some information, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. For the information of the councillors in consideration of this notice of motion, can I please advise the council that we have, as Armidale Regional Council, the Cemetery Operations and Management Policy, which was adopted in 2018. That policy states that that rural interment requirements are not offered through our own cemeteries, and so we don't need to re-adopt that at the moment. Furthermore, the legislation is pretty clear that the offering of such interment rights are voluntary, and I understand in our New England region and parts of the Namoi region, none of the local authorities are offering renewable interment rights. I thought that might be useful for the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Could I have a move for this motion, please? Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Connor. So, Councillor O'Brien.
Yes. Well, that we made that, that it wasn't a mandatory thing, that it was up to various councils to decide whether that option would be. Widespread community survey showed that people did not like that option, and they did find it, as particularly many cultural groups, that in fact was very offensive idea, and that it would create a two-tier burial system. So I guess I don't really have to argue the case if in fact there's no need for this motion to go forward, because in fact there isn't a compulsory, you've already organised that there isn't that option of temporary interment. So I don't know where I go from here. Do I withdraw it, or do I?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question first. The intent of this notice of motion goes to disinterment after a 25-year period, which is separate indeed to what we're talking about right now, I suspect. And I think there's some merit in the motion, particularly if the disinterment, if we specified that we didn't want that to happen in the bush because we've got plenty of land, but in Rookwood and other places, it's a pressing issue. So I just make that observation. I think we should still discuss it, debate on the basis of we don't want disinterment in the bush.
So,
can I speak again then? Because I misunderstood. Okay. Yes. Just to clarify, it is about temporary interment, and it's about being able to dig up remains after 25 years. And I just wanted to clarify, was that in fact not an option that's going to be offered to our local cemeteries? Is that not an option?
Thank you. No, under our cemetery operations and management policy, disinterment of graves after 25 years is not offered. That's
with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, this new regulation which is coming in, a state regulation, would override our local regulation.
You understand?
Councillor, the legislation is voluntary for councils, and our council has already adopted a policy of no disinterment.
So, Councillor O'Brien, do you want to withdraw the motion?
Can I ask Councillor Tiley through the chair if he, in fact, has any more information that makes it clear that that this is an issue anymore now that this issue is not compulsory and that we're not doing it?
Councillor Foley?
The CEO has just indicated that it is a voluntary regulation recently adopted in 2018. I accept that. Withdraw.
Okay, I'll withdraw.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. So moving on to item 8.2. This is another one from Councillor O'Brien. So could I have a move and a seconder, Councillor O'Brien? Councillor Robinson. Councillor O'Brien?
Well, this motion is response to the Local Government Association's call for the New South Wales Government to give local councils a better deal so we can improve the services to the community. There's nothing contentious about it. LGA is the voice of councils, and they work in the interest of councils, and they work in the interest of the community that we serve. So this motion has been passed by councils all over New South Wales, and recently just moved by the Lord Mayor of Sydney and passed unanimously, and has been passed by many councils unanimously because, again, it's actually in council's interest. We know that one of the key issues that's been a part of the council problems for many years is cost shifting. The 2015 cost shifting report shows rural areas are much worse off, including us, and if not for cost shifting, we would very likely, all things equal, not be in debt at the moment. The transfer of roads, as we know, is one of those issues. It's a burden to us in terms of time and money. And the report of 2015 identified top 5 cost areas that could be reformed that create a great burden on the costs of council. One of them is the mandatory emergency service levy and the waste levy. Now, the waste levy in every other state is returned 100%, but in New South Wales it's only 18%. The other one, of course, is the pensioner rebate, which is everywhere is refunded 100%, but not here. So we're just asking that we get a fair deal from all around that is similar to councils in other states. Priority also is library funding. That library funding has been slashed dramatically. We're asking for, and we're getting much lower funding than other states. If you see the attachment, it gives you much more detail. Other priorities too is council to be provided with untied recurrent grants for council serving the most disadvantaged areas, and we are one of those areas. Also protecting ownership of rural water facilities and utilities, and also introducing super for mayors and councillors, so those who serve their communities, solely on that, stipend for many years are not disadvantaged later on in life. This certainly happens to a lot of young women. And also to address the skills shortage by council traineeships. It's not just funding, but greater autonomy and freedom to make financial decisions without massive red tape. Some of that autonomy includes being able to raise revenue ourselves through value capture, voluntary planning agreements and other ways we see fit through community consultation, able to renew the intergovernmental agreement between New South Wales Government and local government New South Wales so that we can work as equal partners on issues affecting communities across New South Wales. So all the issues advocated by the Local Government Association have been identified through council feedback, member surveys, research and submissions, so it is in the interest of providing better services and for local councils to be empowered to make good decisions in the interests of their communities. Reading around the local government reports indicate that it's the Mayor who has approached candidates to ask for their support in these priority areas. I'm sure councillors will all agree we must improve our capacity to serve our community and be funded fairly and to be given the capacity to make good decision making. So I urge you to support this motion.
Councillor Robinson.
At our December council meeting, we passed a motion on cost shifting, and that was supported unanimously because of the implications and ramifications for our local area. And I believe that as representatives of this community and what it aims to lead this community, what our responsibility to do is to encourage our voters to get the best information possible to make the best possible decision when they cast the ballots this month. So we should be certainly supporting the process of local democracy. And basically that's all this motion intends to do. Anything we can do to have informed voters who make informed decisions for our community is a good thing. We already support local government New South Wales, and by supporting local government New South Wales in their endeavours, I think we will enhance our community and help people make informed decisions for the next election. Therefore, I support this motion.
Any councillor wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Robinson, you turn your mic off, please. Any councillor wish to speak against the motion? Okay, in that case I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Carried. Item 8.3. I again will ask our CEO to speak to this motion, please.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. Councillors, for your consideration, I thought I'd clarify what the wording in the delivery plan actually says. The delivery plan states that we, the council, our regional council, partner with stakeholders to develop strategies and provide programs which improve air quality across the region, including the reduction of smoke pollution by using alternative energy sources. The meeting of national air quality standards is a measure of how successful those strategies may be. There's no mention of World Health Organization standards in our delivery plan. I further wish to advise the council that in undertaking the development of that strategy, it would cut across the work that is being done through the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee with the Greenprint the Greenprint EcoArc strategy, which encompasses matters of air quality. And if the organisation were asked to develop with partners another strategy or another set of strategies for implementation before the beginning of winter 2019, at our current operational levels and activities, we would struggle to do that. And if I can also just advise the council that the use of current health data and the New South Wales Government official air quality index, this council has not in any of its policy or resolutions made a connection between the health data and the air quality index, and adoption of this strategy or adoption of this motion would in fact do that.
Thank you, CEO. Can I have a mover of Councillor O'Connor?
Yeah, I'd like to move this, and I think I can allay some of the CEO's concerns as I do.
A seconder, please. Councillor Withers. So, Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, thank you. Look, I really don't want to jump the gun, and I am most appreciative of what the CEO has just told us. In fact, after some discussion, I think the best way forward with this is to amend Section B and defer Section A to after the time when the wood smoke, the air quality advisory group has actually produced its report. So I'm very happy to defer that. I understand, much as it would be great to have a strategy going into winter 2019, this is a complicated matter, and it's much more important to bring everybody together on this, including whatever the recently constituted Air Quality Advisory Group is planning to do. I certainly agree with the CEO that there's no way I would want to cut across the work of the EcoArc that the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee is doing. And so I would ask councillors if they would support me in an amendment here that just says that that 8.3 subsection A be deferred. I do apologise, I left my glasses in the car, so oh, thanks. No, that's not going to help. It's worse. That be deferred until such time as the Air Quality Advisory Group has reported to Council. Secondly, what I would press in relation, I do take on board what the CEO has said, and what I would press is that we go forward with subsection B, but we change it simply to that Council brief other levels of government. So we actually delete all that reference to current, from the word current right through to Hunter Valley, close brackets 2. So what we end up with is that Council brief other levels of government on the urgent need for financial assistance to improve Armidale's winter air quality, which will support ARC's efforts towards attracting regional growth, year-round tourism, economic development and decentralisation. I don't think that I really need to say much more than that. I think we're all in a position where we know that we have a problem, we know that it's limited to the urban area around Armidale, we know we need to do something, and we've all, if we give ourselves a little more time, we will all have the opportunity to liaise with the advisory group, to liaise with the chair of the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee and the work that they're doing with EcoArc, and we can go forward when that work is done. So that's what I would be proposing as this motion, a deferral. Sorry, now I've got to read this. Yep, I think that's. I think, yeah, I think we might delete the word World Health Organisation standards. But I do that on the basis of the advice from the CEO. So I think that's all I really need to say.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. You turn your mic off, please. Councillor Witters, are you happy with that changes to the motion as you seconded it?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with what Councillor O'Connor's put in, and support the fact that we are doing something in regards to this area. Thanks.
Is there a speaker for the motion? A speaker against the motion? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Uh, 8.4, which
Can
is...
I ask a question or two in relation to the CEO's comments through you, Mr. Mayor?
No, the decision's been made. If you want to ask... sorry. I think Councillor Robinson, you put your mic on, please.
Yeah, I was very confused about the delivery plan because I thought that I'd seen this text in the delivery plan that was on the council's website. So through you, I'd like to ask our CEO when that, for the date of that particular delivery plan, and I'd also like to ask the CEO whether she understands that the World Health Organization and standards and the National Air Quality Standards is the same thing. And a third question would be in relation to the 12th of December council meeting, in which there was meant to be a meeting with the reference group and the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting, and whether the CEO knows when that meeting will take place, since it was supposed to be before the end of February. Thank you.
I can answer a bit of that. The Mayor's external reference group is purely an external one. It's up to them to decide if they wish to meet with anyone from council. We can't dictate to them, even though it might be on a motion, it's up to them to decide whether they want to consult with us. They've agreed to present to council, so anything more than that is going to be a request. Councillor Robson, this I will leave until we can have this as a conversation between yourself and the CEO, because it's not related. We've already passed a motion, so can we just leave it? We'll just move on with business, and I'll get the CEO to converse with you about this at a later stage.
Thank you.
8.4, two parts there, so can I have a move and a seconder, please? Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Robbins. Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this motion might appear a bit unusual, but or a bit unimportant, but I'd just like the opportunity to explain to my fellow councillors and the community why I put that in. Basically, there are two forms of meetings that we councillors have with each other and with the staff of Armidale Regional Council in relation to developing policy, making decisions moving forward. And clearly we as councillors are elected and we act in response to our representative obligations to the community that's elected us. To date, we've been basically adopting the term workshop for all meetings, and I think that, in fact, if you go to the Concise Oxford English Dictionary, there's actually two very different things that we are doing, and I'm just asking that we recognise those in our formal documents. A briefing is a meeting for giving information or instructions, simple thing, and we have a lot of those, as we should and we need, and we're very appreciative of the staff and other people who come to provide information to assist us. A workshop, however, is defined as a meeting in which a group engages in incisive discussion and activity on a particular subject or project. And so basically the workshops component is where councillors and staff are able to engage interactively and really, wrestle with a problem or a difficulty and have discussions, and then without making final decisions, actually perhaps ask for another iteration of a recommendation that's been put before them, and in other words, sort of move forward in terms of developing policy without making a final decision. And I'm just asking my fellow councillors if we could ask our staff to actually use that terminology, because I think it's important. Not all of us can go to everything, and I think it's incredibly important that when we are invited to meetings, we know exactly what they're going to be about. And there's been a recent occasion on the 6th of February when we had a workshop which comprised more than, in my estimate, a lot of briefing. And I just think it's actually caused a bit of disharmony, and I don't think that we want to go forward with that. So I'm just asking that we get more clarity when we're invited to meetings as to the nature of the meetings. And the second part relates to workshops where we are going to engage in strong discussion. We need time to absorb the material, the facts, the information that's going to be put before us on the basis of us making decisions and entering into discussions. So I'm asking that we be given some briefing time and briefing materials, and that being 5 working days prior to that workshop. Happy if there's a problem with that being produced for practical reasons, I think we could all be would be willing to be understanding about that, but we must have some kind of previous or early material on which we can rely when we go into a workshop discussion. That's all I need to say about that.
Councillor O'Connor, your mic, please. Councillor Connor, one thing that really alarmed me was you talking about making decisions, and you did mention making decisions twice, and I think that's a little bit alarming. But we can only do that in council chambers. Now, I might just ask our CEO.
Can I clarify? I was very particular, Mr. Mayor, and I do want to respond to that comment of yours. What I'm saying is that the material that we get in briefings and in workshops is the foundations for the decisions that we make in the public, this public meeting, this ordinary council meeting. I'm not ashamed to say that there's relevance in those meetings to decision making, but clearly the actual decision making can happen and only happens here in a public meeting.
Thank you for clarification. I will ask our CEO just to provide a few points on this before I ask Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. Nomenclature notwithstanding, essentially the current code of meeting practice, and indeed is reinforced in the new model code of meeting practice, is quite strong about meetings and caucusing of council and councillors. Essentially, what we have been calling workshops are indeed briefings, if we want to use the strict definition, and briefings and provision of information, clarification around information is essentially as far as the code of meeting practice allows councillors to go when they are not within the chamber, because the debate and the discussion and certainly the decision making should be in public and within the chamber. If I can just clarify that.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Robinson?
I support this motion because I think that if we have time to read and understand the material, then we can actually discuss it and debate it far better than we've done in the past. And I think that makes much more efficient use of our time, and I think it makes much more efficient use of staff time. I think there have been examples in the past where we had no idea what was going to be presented at these meetings, and therefore everybody had to absorb the material cold, and it wasn't as helpful as it might have been. So if we have the information that we're supposed to be deliberating on, we can discuss it, we can understand it, and then we can come to prepare our thoughts for the council meeting, and in the end that will greatly assist the decision making process in the council chambers. So I hope everybody will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion? Speaker against the motion?
Hang on, I'm a half and half here, so I'll put it on the for, because I've got a little bit of for it. I think I'd like to thank Councillor O'Connor for her definitions of briefing and workshops, but in regards to, as the CEO stated, I think it's a bit of a tomato-tomato situation. So I think, in my opinion, A is not really necessary, but I really like the fact that B is there. I think it's a good point to have a little bit of information going into the workshops so we understand, as Councillor Robertson has said, so it's more time effective for not only us but for the staff as well, so we're already up to speed with what they're trying to deliver. So I'd like to support B, and A can sort of float around if it wants to, but I'm not really a fan of it.
Speaker against the motion? Okay, in that case I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Motion carried. Item 8.5, which is again from Councillor O'Connor, so I presume Councillor O'Connor you want to move?
Yeah.
Can I have a mover, seconder, please?
Thank you.
Councillor Witters. So Councillor O'Connor?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this one relates to our role under Section 232 of the Local Government Act as it's been recently amended. Look, the definition of the role of councillors has changed, and so I'm going to read out the two sections that I think are relevant here. 1D of Section 232 says that our role as councillors is to represent the collective interests of the residents and ratepayers and the local community. Section 232 subsection 2 says a councillor is accountable to the local community for the performance of the council. Now, I don't think it can be denied that the performance includes the financial performance of council. And I believe that councillors, given that statutory definition of our role, that we do have an obligation which in law is sometimes, or in general conversation, is referred to as fiduciary, and that basically means that where there's a situation where there's a trust, especially in regard to money or things that a trustee manages on behalf of the beneficiary, you've got a fiduciary obligation. And in this case, it's pretty simple. The RAPE has, in the last 2017-18 audited financial reports, have contributed 49.95 in their money, either by fees and charges, rates, or annual charges, to the coffers of Armidale Regional Council. So that's pretty much $50 million, and we, as councillors, have a responsibility to account under the Act to the community as to how that's spent. So, and the way that's spent is basically captured in and provided for by council's budget process. So this motion is that council provide to council and the public the final budget to be adopted for the next budget period, which will be 2019-2020, 2 weeks in advance of the date when we have to meet and make that public decision about whether we adopt it or not. And part B of this is just technical. It's basically that when those documents are released, that they are in, modern format, digital. They can be searched and able to be copied, so that whether it's us or members of the community who are entitled to see them, they can access them readily, easily, and understand what is going on. Look, we are obliged under every principle that the Office of Local Government puts out to further the cause of transparency, to engage with the community. We are accountable for the money that is spent, and I think this will just make it a bit easy for us. In the past, it's been very, very tight time frames around when the final budget is given to us and when we have to adopt it. So there's no criticism of anybody at all meant here, just that we really need some time to properly discharge our duties to the community and under the Act.
Councillor Connie, your mic. It might just ask our CEO to just clarify a couple of points there.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. I really don't want to get into the debate too much. Councillors need to be aware that the process and timetable we're following for the adoption of the 1920 budget accommodates within it a period of public exhibition of a minimum of 28 days for the public. So that's already built within our process, and it's expected that the draft budget will come to council after a series of briefings, workshops, however you wish to describe it, for adoption and to go on exhibition for a minimum of 28 days. So, and I just wanted to clarify that the process already incorporates that.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Withers.
2 questions before I second that. Councillor O'Connor, do you want in Part A for it to say the council provide to council laws? Because the council to provide to the council is just providing to itself. Yeah, thank you. And the second one is...
Councillor Withers, you did second this.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was right. Just clarify that, right? And just quickly before I second it, the second one was to the CEO, just based on her comments. With this motion, even though I support this, think it's a reasonable request, are we, in the terms, boiling our potatoes twice and asking the council to do something that they're already doing?
The CEO?
I like the analogy. The short answer is basically yes. The budget process is necessarily extensive, and I think I've used the words highly interactive, and it's not a smooth process. To provide it, to add another 2 weeks to an existing process which already has workshops, briefings with the councillors and provisions of the draft documents for it to go out to public exhibition for 28 days will put considerable pressure on the teams to do that.
Alrighty, so wait for that, come on. Happy to second it so it goes to the vote, but hearing the CEO's response, are you willing to?
Thanks, Councillor Withers. I'm happy to respond now or wait for my right of reply.
I'll second it so it goes to the vote and everything else. So Councillor O'Connor can respond.
A speaker for the motion? A speaker against the motion? Councillor Bailey?
Mr Mayor, I think we've got enough provisions at the moment. I mean, we get briefings, we get workshops, the papers come to us before a meeting, then it goes to the meeting, then it goes to community consultation, then it has to come back to us to finally be approved. I don't think it's necessary to extend another 2 weeks. I think all we're doing is placing unnecessary strain on the staff. I think the provisions we've got at the moment are working. We've got a new CFO who I think is performing exceptionally well, and I don't think she needs any more pressure.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Any speaker for the motion?
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Tyler?
perhaps the most important role of this council is to adopt a budget, allocate resources for the ensuing year, taking the public with us, to give the public the opportunity to know what is in the budget, to know what our plans are for the following year, is helped by giving that extra bit of time for them to peruse the financial documents before the council signs off. So I strongly support the motion.
A speaker against? Okay, Councillor O'Connor, you all right to reply?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, with great respect to what the CEO has said, she on both occasions referred to the draft budget going out, and the point that I have here, I'm not too fussed about the time, but it's got to be enough time. The point is that I state the final budget, and that's the problem, that there are last-minute changes made, and I think it's important, as Councillor Tiley said, and Councillor Widders has also supported, that not just us, it's hard enough for us, and we do get the briefings that Councillor Bailey referred to, but it's hard enough for us to kind of keep up with the changes, the iterations of the budget, the draft, and then the final. And so what I'm trying to establish here is that we get a fixed time when the final budget, the one that was going to be put before us to adopt, is given to us and no further changes are to be made to that. No extra line items that we can't find, put in, popped in, things like that. There's no criticism of anybody except ourselves. We just need that time, and the community needs that time. So I do urge that councillors support this. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put it to the Councillor O'Connor, your mic, please. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. 8.6, which is improved public consultation process. Before we do, I'll again ask our CEO for comments.
Councillors, just for your information and consideration, we have done some research into the Privacy and Personal Information Protection Act, which outlines in New South Wales how public sector agencies such as ours need to manage personal information, and that includes the stuff, the personal information, which can include information or an opinion which forms part of a database, and whether or not it's in a recorded form about an individual, and also includes details such as name, address, and other information about individuals. To give effect to, well, for us to consider this motion, there would need to be significant changes to the way the council deals with people's personal information when they make submissions to the council following a public exhibition period. In order for us to be able to comply with the legislation that would necessarily incur costs and time.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Robinson, I presume you want to move this?
Yes, I'll move it.
A seconder, please. Councillor Widders. Councillor Robinson.
Well, this is now, bearing in mind that we have to comply with all relevant legislation, this is standard practice at other levels of government. And the motion, this was actually listed in the background information, so showing what the state government does. Now, if the state government can do it, and then I really don't, and these issues are just as important for local government as they are for state government or federal government. And I think every single councillor in this room has been arguing that we should support transparency and efficient government. And if the public doesn't know what submissions have been received on a particular topic that's gone out for public consultation, and that appeared to be the case until very, very recently, and it not only appeared to be the case, when I asked the CAO whether councillors could have access to that information, the request was refused. So much for efficient and transparent governance. So I believe that really this is something whereby we have to bring ourselves up to modern day practice. We have to bring ourselves up to the standards of transparency and efficiency that the public have now come to expect. So I'm very pleased to see that at least things are improving, and that for one public consultation, the submissions are now available in the attachments, which wasn't the case earlier on. And I think that will help us make a much better decision on this issue. So basically, I would like to find out how much it would cost us extra to comply with normal standards of transparency and accountability. But until that happens, and why it is so difficult for this council to comply with the same sort of stuff that the state government and the federal government does as a matter of routine. So I certainly
Councillor Robinson, your microphone switched off for some reason.
So those are the questions I would like to ask. I believe this is very, very important, that when we have public consultations, the public should know about those submissions, and if necessary, and they can discuss them intelligently, and all the relevant information is available. Because if we don't, we can't make the correct decisions, or we can't make the best decisions for our community. So I hope everybody will support this motion. Thank you.
I must admit that I prefer that councillors don't get access to the information before any other councillors. If you're going to provide information to councillors, it should be to all councillors at the same time, not to individuals, as you sort of hinted at.
I totally deny that comment. That is a really sorry. I mean, I think that is really an unfair and demeaning thing to say. I never asked. All I asked for was that all councillors should have access to the information, and to actually make an implication like that I was asking for anything else is really offensive. But having said that, yes, I mean, in the motion simply says that submissions should be available to the public, and everybody should have entitled to the same sort of information.
And Councillor Robinson, the information is available to the public. So I don't. Okay, well, let's go on. Councillor Witters.
I'll second the motion so I can go into discussion with the rest of the councillors. I'm interested to. Sorry about that, Councillor Tully, taking up your time. And what everyone else seems to be thinking, since they're so engrossed in it. So we'll move it to the floor.
Councillors, it seems like our microphones, if someone presses it while someone's speaking, they actually overwrite it. So if you don't mind, just wait until they finish speaking. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Tiley. You might have to speak up, Councillor Tiley. Okay.
unless you specifically request confidentiality. One sentence. And that's been applying in councils I've worked for the last 20 years. It's not a big deal. But what it does, it alerts the submitter that if unless they declare they want confidentiality, it's out in the open. And I'm all for things being out in the open, as you know.
Thank you, Councillor. Speaker against the motion? Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Are carried. Now moving on to 9.1, public exhibition of model code of meeting practice.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that prior to the going out to public consultation on the model code of meeting practice 9.1 and also 9.4, the model code of conduct, that the council discusses these two documents in open council, and I suggest a 2 p.m. start for our next monthly council meeting for that purpose, and that we go through each of the documents to determine as councillors, in the case of the model code of meeting practice, what red font we want in or out, and in the case of the model code of conduct, whether we want to improve the minimum standard in some circumstances in relation to that code. That's a bit of a mouthful. So perhaps the motion should just read that items 9.1 and 9.4 be deferred for consideration by council at a council meeting commencing 2 p.m. on the 27th of March.
So, okay, can I have a second? So,
if I can speak to it, I'll hopefully clarify it for everybody, Mr. Mayor. We recognise that both of these documents have to go to public consultation. We also know that there's a date by which we have to sign off on these. It's only February still, and we've got plenty of time to do that. With all due respect to the wonderful staff who prepared these reports, they've indicated to us what red font is in and what is out in terms of the code of meeting practice, and we've had no say on that. And I think the code of meeting practice is vital to each of us in terms of our roles as councillors. And I think, therefore, that to go through all the red font and to debate and to make decisions in open council, is a really good thing to do. Same with the model code of conduct, and if there's opposition, I'll have a right to reply.
thank you, Councillor Tyler. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just want to support what Councillor Tyler has said. These matters were raised briefly in what I think would probably be called a briefing on the 16th of January. That's a difficult time because school holidays are still on, a lot of people are away. Secondly, we do have the time, I think it's a date in June, and I believe that the community that I am speaking to are really concerned about issues to do with transparency. They need time to get up to date, not just with the decisions we make, but also the procedure and the processes by which we make them. And I think that having a public meeting where we actually go through in a steady manner these significant changes, and I note that some of the optional ones have been dropped into this, and some of the offerings in relation to the codes that we could have had have not been taken up, and I just think we need to discuss that more and let the community know where we're at. So I definitely support this. Thank you.
A speaker for the motion, for the deferral, Councillor Ronson.
Yeah, I also support deferral because there are several issues that we probably haven't fully considered and possibly need to before we accept these documents. And one thing that certainly, and this is possibly because a lot of these documents are being dictated by the state government. And one thing that certainly horrified me, and we've known for some time, was in a briefing meeting by Lindsay Taylor lawyers, where they told us that if we found evidence of improper behaviour or corruption, and obviously nobody believes that anything like that is actually happening in this council, but if we did, as for example is happening at Auburn Council, it happens in Auburn Council with the deputy mayor there, then it would be a breach of our code of conduct to actually disclose that to the public. So I think this is some issues where we've really got to think these things through and make sure that we make these decisions in the best interests of our community. So I support deferral until we can consider all these issues fully and carefully and calmly. Thank you.
A speaker against. This is the deferral of the two motions, 9.1 and 9.4. So anyone wish to speak
Yeah, we'll
against?
call it an against, just for the sake of something to do. But I think this deferral is based around a few minor issues within the both points, and I encourage, if we go to a deferral in a meeting, I encourage the community to watch it to make sure they know that what we're talking about.
Anyone wish to speak for the motion? For this deferral? Councillor Tyler, you're right to reply.
Do I need a right of reply? I don't need a right of reply, thank you.
Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, 9.2, which is the conduct of local government elections, September 2020, and popular election of mayor. You got a number of points there. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Witters. No one else wants to second it? Councillor Tyler. Councillor Witters.
All right, moved it for the sake of it being moved, but I think a good. So I'll just reserve my right of reply.
Councillor Tyler. Councillor Witters, your mic, please.
Mr Mayor, I think it's fairly straightforward. We have to make a decision about who conducts our elections. I'm delighted that we're not going to have the recommendation proposes no referendum for a popular election of mayor. I don't want to go down that path, but I'm strongly opposed to that. So I just support the motion and see what comes up.
Speaker for. Speaker against. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Now, councillors, 9.3, there are, I don't know if you all got the latest changes, because there's been the background, etc., has not changed, but the recommendations have. Has everyone got that up on the? They had a card copy. Okay. It's up here. The issue we had was that it was very hard for us to determine when we started looking at the original A and B to looking at how we could get nominees, etc. So we broke it up into 4 parts. So give you a second to read that. Councillors, I'll take it in seriatim so that we look at A, because if A is not passed, then it makes all the rest of them redundant. So can I have a move and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Witters, Councillor Martin. Councillor Witters?
Again, just move the motion so that we can move the meeting along.
Councillor Martin. So anyone to speak for the motion, for those? Okay, we'll do with A first.
Can I speak against, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I've been to about 10 of these conferences over the last 20 years. This one is going to be held immediately after a federal election, so there'll be no air in the sails. It'll be a pretty low-key affair, point one. Point two, it's of limited value. They're high-level motions. The ALGA, the Australian Local Government Association, put out a manifesto 6 months ago, clearly articulating what local government wanted from the feds, both sides of politics. We've already, I think, through a motion from Councillor O'Brien, supported that manifesto. It's costly to send a mayor and 2 councillors to Canberra for the best part of a week because there's a regional development day on the day before, which also costs. So we're talking several $1,000s, and we've got elsewhere in our report details of my $483 expenditure as a councillor this year, and we've been crying that we need to save some dollars. Here's an excellent way to save. I just don't believe we need to go. Thank you.
Speaker, thank you, Councillor Tyler. Speaker 4. This is dealing with A. Okay, Councillor Witters, did you write a reply? No. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of sending, that we attend, that council attends, those in favour? Those against? Then we move on. So the motion is defeated.
With respect, Mr. Mayor, on these, there are 2 relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing it.
Yes, sorry, yes.
I should have said
Councillor Robinson, you sorry, Councillor Tiley.
I went through the manifesto, then being a local government tragic, I went through the last 2 business papers of ALGA conferences to see whether we could put a motion up which might add some value. I couldn't find anything. Okay, so just give that for what it's worth.
So, councillors, we do have that C and D that we can. Is it C and D or D? D. So we do have that option that we can put a notice of motion up.
No, you don't, because you've got to be there to present your motion.
Oh, right. Then that. Thank you. Thank you. Then it's moving on to 9.4, which has not been deferred. So 9.5, which is second quarter budget. Now, councillors, there was I don't know if you all saw it, there's a supplementary update on that. I might just get our CEO to provide it in case you haven't read the updates. Councillor Ty, that's why I'm giving our CEO a chance to provide updates.
Councillors, we do apologise for the technical hitch that occurred in which some people received the up-to-date version of the quarterly budget review and others didn't. But we're not quite sure, or I'm not quite sure how that happened. But there is a technical reason. Do apologise that it came so late for you to consider. I'm just looking for my copy. The quarterly budget review demonstrates a continuing position where we are tracking in terms of our consolidated operating budget to better than the original adopted budget, but there is a slight variance from the first quarter's revised budget. I think the slightly worsening position, which is I guess in global terms neither here nor there, indicates the amount of rigour that has to be in place in managing the budgets in order to maintain our original forecasted revised position. it's the staff have put in a lot of work in terms of robustly managing their budgets in order to achieve that consolidated position, and I guess highlights some of the difficulties that we have with the variability. I think in your email, the main changes have been identified, and I don't know that I need to go into them in detail, but I do want to highlight a much better or much improved position compared with the original adopted budget, which looked at a consolidated deficit of 3.8 million, some 400,000.
I might just take this, because we're so late, I might just allow councillors the chance of asking questions for clarification. So, Councillor Tiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report indicates that we're still looking at a consolidated deficit of $874,000 for the year. Madam CEO, what steps are you taking with your senior staff to reduce that deficit, preferably to zero?
Councillors, I can't embellish the position by saying we will make that happen, because it is a strenuous piece of work just to achieve. It's actually the general fund is a deficit position of 874. You consolidated some 400,000 when you consolidated water and sewer. We are continuing to significantly reduce costs, particularly around our staffing costs, holding vacancies, and over the period of time, possibly not replacing a large number of vacancies. The vacancy factor at the moment we're carrying on a daily basis is around 7%, and at times we've pushed it pretty hard to closer to 10%. Contracts and materials, consultant spend, again, significant reductions have been made there, and we'll continue to do that. The other end of the ledger, of course, is continuing to increase fees and, well, being robust about collecting fees and charges. We have an expectation that pay and display charges will be at the airport within this financial year, which will, we hope, help the position, as well as increased enforcement of our timed parking throughout the city. While we would, with a balanced budget at the year end, I think we would be optimistic to achieve that, notwithstanding the stringency measures we're taking in place.
Mr. Mayor, my next question to the CEO, I'm sorry I can't agree with what you just said, but for example, have you focused on expending grant funds such as Platform Road, Rockvale Road, Kempsey Road, in lieu of spending council rate dollars on other roadworks as a means of reducing that deficit?
Oh my! I can't overstate the creativity we've used in expending grant funds instead of general fund or our own cash in order to undertake the maintenance renewals that we have undertaken. I think at a briefing, I can't recall, fairly recently, Leah Cook, who has the lovely job of managing our maintenance budgets, illustrated the extent to which we have substituted grant funding for our own funding.
Okay. The review indicates a $5.3 million increase in grants and contributions, which I thought would have been a nice bonus. Do you know what the major components of that are, or would the service leader know?
Yes, actually, I might, if through you, Chair, defer to Leah, who's in the audience, to describe that. It is a nice bonus, but we probably have counted that figure in previously. Leah, do you just cover that?
While they're considering that answer, I'll ask another question. The savings on consultants of $534, I'm wondering how that was achieved. Was it the $5 million implementation fund overspent, or do we magically make some nice savings elsewhere?
We sliced the salami much more thinly.
Leah, can you turn your...
Thank you. Through the chair. The grants increase recognised in the second quarter review are such as the $500,000 that we received in the drought assistance grant to fund Burralong Road and the potable water component of the federal assistance grant. The economic grant brought forward cash position on Tinga Skate Park and other small funds available. So it's not necessarily a receipt of new grants. It's more the recognition, apart from the drought funding, it's the movement of expenditure into this year.
Thanks, Leah. Now, councillors, can I have a move or a second for that? Councillor Murat?
I don't know which pages.
Are you asking a question, Councillor Murat? Yes.
It's the income and expenditure budget review statement. There's no page numbering here. It's item number 7, materials and contracts. And it's got here, key adjustments relate to increase in expenditure for the budget. And there's a number of items there. A couple of them are quite substantial. Could I get a bit of an idea of what the increase in the budget was there, please?
Councillor Murat, to your mic, please.
Councillor, I'm happy to brief the councillor directly on that matter. It is a work in progress, and there are contractual and commercial matters in contestation, and I would prefer that, as it's still a work in progress and there are commercial implications, that we have a confidential discussion on that at this stage.
Thanks, Leo. Can I have a move and a second then, please? Councillor Murat, Councillor Martin, Councillor Murat?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wishes to speak for the motion? Councillor Tyler?
I saw somewhere in the attachments a number of capital projects. I presume where there's variances, and I presume, Madam CEO, that's what you're alluding to, that you'd like to brief us.
Anyone else speak against the motion? Councillor Robertson?
Yeah. I want to speak against the motion because it's a very broad, high-level document, and there really isn't enough information that I've been given to find out how it affects our operational or delivery plans. And I'd really like a briefing on those issues before I can accept the information here, because otherwise we could be slashing important community services and important projects. And I would certainly like to be assured that that is not going to be happening, given the other information I've received at recent times. Therefore, I would like to vote against this. I'm going to vote against it, and also until I have more information that allows me to make an informed decision on this. And I would certainly also like my dissent to be recorded in the minutes.
A speaker for? Any speak against? Otherwise, ask Councillor Murat, do you want to write a reply? No. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Do you all three want your to be recorded? So carried. 10.1, which is the public exhibition of draft investment policy.
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Tiley,
Speak to it
Councillor
briefly.
Roberts, O'Connor, Councillor Tiley.
On the basis of the Treasury Corporation support of the policy, I think that was a really good thing to do. And noting the Standard & Poor's ratings on page 202 of the attachments, I'm a little concerned about, and we might go into this while it's on exhibition, why we're limiting, or why there seems to be a limit on AAA category ratings to 40%. Maybe I'm reading that wrongly. Whereas we're allowed to go BBB ratings up to 30% maximum and 5% unrated. Those of us that have been around in local government in New South Wales for a long time know all about BlackRock and many other nasties that occurred. And this tightening up is good. So I'm happy to move that we put it on exhibition, but I'd like us to look at those ratings and the percentage permissible, and I'd like us to do away with the 5% unrated, because I think that's a fool's paradise, and some of the BBB and BB ratings also would give us cause for concern. We're the custodians of the public purse. We need to be super conservative, in my view. Having said that, as I said, I move the motion.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Councillor Tiley has said. I think this does need discussion, further discussion, and no doubt we'll get that with submissions from the public. Thank you.
Anyone who speak for the motion? Against the motion? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Item 10.2, which is the public exhibition of draft tourism strategy. A mover, please, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Murat. Councillor Bailey.
Could I hear the foreshadowed amendment, because it might be acceptable as part of the motion?
What? Look, I just would like to add at item B that there be a collaboration with my committee, which is the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee, have carriage of the tourism strategy. The only reason I'm saying that is that I'm not asking for any role other than as a collaborator. This was a dirty word in World War II, but it's now very much a term of art, which is in fact very much part of the tourism strategy, and I think it's in tier 1 of the strategy is collaboration, and tier 2 of the strategy identifies one of the main planks of that strategy as being arts and culture, and the SWOT analysis that is contained in there refers to arts, culture and heritage as one of our strengths, and it also identifies one of our threats as a lack of collaboration. Just with a bit of context, in the lead up to the revived Autumn Festival, which is now renamed the New England Festival, it's been a little bit of a problem in that there's been a disconnect between the very hard work that the Arts and Culture and Heritage Committee is doing to contribute to that festival, because there's basically two parts of council trying to work together, and so the words in collaboration would simply perhaps entrench some kind of collaboration between those two committees in relation to the tourism strategy, because they clearly intersect, and you know, I have every wish and desire as the chair of the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee to work closely on matters that will boost tourism, and I know that my committee is actually identified in, as is myself, in the people that actually went to the consultation, or my committee members. So I just think this would be a fitting but small and, can I suggest, painless amendment.
Councillor Bailey, are you happy with the amendment?
Look, I'm happy to collaborate and work with most organisations, because the other group that probably should be consulted is the Business Advisory Committee, because they basically represent the chamber. And, you know, I think we're in a situation where you've really got to have one committee drive the process, but agree to consult with the other two groups that are involved in the tourism space, so that we do hear from both those groups. And I'm prepared to do that, and I'm sure that our committee would be prepared to do that. So if we could also include the Business Advisory Committee, I think that would be a fair outcome.
There's a difference between carriage and collaboration. I'm just wondering whether you want the collaboration or the carriage, if you can just clarify.
How would you define the difference?
Collaboration would be you interact with them for information, but you, as a carriage, which one is it? The Regional Growth Advisory Committee take control of it, and then you get advice from the other organisations. So that's the way I see the difference.
I would see collaboration, and I'll give you a commitment that we'll work together to try and bring it forward.
So you reject the amendment? Yep. Okay. Yep. I thought it was an amendment to be included in
I'd
the
accept
carriage.
that part of the motion.
Right. Councillor Miorat, as the seconder, you. Right. So Councillor Bailey.
I've read through the report. It's probably not a great deal of difference to the previous tourism reports that Armidale Generic Council got. The only comment I would make is I think having spent a fair bit of time in Tamworth in the last month, one thing I think it doesn't highlight is our climatic advantage. Tamworth in January was an average of 37 degrees maximum temperature, and I think some of our tourism strategy has got to be about promoting our cool climate and our magnificent summers and our milder winters. I mean, how long since we've had a snowfall in winter? And I think we've got so much to offer. I know a number of people that have moved to Armidale for climate reasons, and I know a number of people that are leaving Tamworth for climate reasons. So I think we've got an advantage that we should, and I've had a discussion with Greg Lawrence about that, because I think it's something we should be emphasising both in this strategy and also in the economic development and Evo City strategy, because we have a unique advantage.
Councillor Miorat. A speaker for the motion? Councillor Tiley.
Mr Mayor, I'm ultimately going to vote for it, but I'm unhappy with Part B from having read the draft strategy. I'm absolutely thrilled with what Councillor Bailey's just said. I believe the strategy needs a lot more oomph, pizzazz, get up and go. It's same old, essentially, and the differences that he talked about are integral to that strategy. And there's other things like our distance between, we're halfway between Canberra and Brisbane, or Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra, Gold, whatever coast. But there's a need to cast off the shackles of what we've thought in the past, to be innovative. So I'm charging Councillor Bailey, who has carriage of this as well as collaboration, to come forward with a really exciting new policy. And if I can sit down with you, I've got a few ideas coming from Paradise. We could do some really good things. Thank you.
Councillor Tiley, I thought this was Paradise. But anyway, anyone wish to speak against the motion? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those people in favour? Carried unanimously. Moving on to item 10.3, which is Evo Cities. Before I go down to ask for a move in a second, I'll just ask our CEO to provide some comment, please. Okay, I won't. I'll ask now for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Miorat. Councillor Bailey?
In the committee's report, and is that the MOU is to contain a clause that Evo Cities will conduct an external review. It needs to say an external review. Evo Cities have been going now for, I think, 10 years, and I think it's time that we employed some consultants to look at the success of Evo Cities to date and to look at how they would recommend as external people to the process about how we can make it better. For instance, if you look at some of their figures, they are creative. For instance, they'll talk about their media exposure and the number of media space they get in newspapers. But if you take out the 7 newspapers of the Evo Cities, the figures wouldn't look so pretty. So I think we've got to begin to analyse. The program is right, but we need some external advice to see how we could do it better for the future. So that's why I've proposed that we have an external review. The second part is that it's only by uniting together we can make things happen. You will see and hear that we've applied for state government funding, further state government funding to help cover the cost of media in Sydney. Media costs in Sydney are extraordinary. The last time I checked, if you wanted to listen to one of Australia's great left-wing radio announcers on TGB, he does the breakfast show, he's about $3,000 for 30-second ad, one ad, Alan Jones. So the media costs in Sydney are extraordinary. And as a consequence, your newspaper costs are extraordinary, your TV costs. So we need to also recognise that we should be pressuring both the state and federal government to co-contribute to this program. And the other thing I would hope in the future is we seriously look at extending the 7 out to 9 or 10 and bring in other communities, because the bigger the pot of money, the more impact that we can have. It's also interesting to note that our committee is going to, at that meeting, a group of us have decided to get together and see how we think we can make Evo Cities better for Armidale. We're looking at things such as how we can improve the awareness of Evo Jobs with the business community, so that they realise the opportunity of uploading jobs onto Evo Jobs for nothing. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we can do to make the program even better. So we recognise the advantage of working together, and to be quite frank, if we pulled out the $80,000 or so that we would get back, is a drop in the ocean when we're trying to market ourselves and to attract people to live here. So I think unity is the answer, but I think we've got to become more actively involved, so that when the Mayor goes to meetings and when staff go to meetings, that we are fighting for some things about how we can improve the program. So I move the motion and seek the support of my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Barty. Your mic, please. I do hope you refer to Armidale as Armidale Regional Council rather than the City of Armidale. Now, Councillor Merritt, there is a amendment to that motion. So are you happy with the amendment?
I agree with the amendment, and there's no further comment, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak for the motion with the amendment? Yep. Councillor Witters.
I've just written down here that actually appreciate the extra word in the motion of the external review. One of my concerns was about the value and outcomes of being involved in Evo Cities and the money around it. So good to see that we've got that in there, that will happen. But I think the more publicity we can get to try and get more people here, and just to clarify with
Councillor
Bailey that the media personality he's talking about is the second best right winger in Australia behind Jason Nightingale.
Anyone wish to speak? Your microphone, please, Councillor Witters.
I did, but I'll come back on.
Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Connor.
I don't wish to speak against the motion, but I would like to ask 3 questions, and maybe Mr. Lawrence might be the best one to answer, but I'll leave that to your discretion, Mr. Chair. The 3 questions, and forgive me if I've missed it in the fine print here, but I would like to know, have we done calculations on return on investment for our subscription to Evo Cities? Secondly, is Evo Cities providing us with reports on benefits to us, Armidale Regional Council? And thirdly, how much time are we allocating now to staff working on the website, the collective website, which in fact is a set of 7 or so websites?
Councillor O'Connor, are you happy if we take that on notice? Because there's a number of points there that you've raised, and we can bring it back to another meeting.
Yeah, look, I'm such a reasonable person that I am happy for that, but seeing as I've got the speaking against position, I'll just say 1 or 2 more sentences, which is that I'm very wary of this association. I think it's a great thing, but it's got to work, and this MOU requires us to do quite a lot of work and invest quite a lot of time into engaging with the website, engaging with the organisation, paying the dues, and I do request that we get some hard figures on whether it is actually worth our while. I'm the last one to want to drop out of this nice arrangement, because it is great to have friends in similar positions and to work with them, but it's got to be paying its way.
Councillor Bailey, is your understanding that putting in that word external will provide a lot of this information that Councillor O'Connor is referring to?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Bailey, you have a right to reply.
I'd ask a question, I suppose, in this right to reply or challenge. How many of you looked at Evo Jobs? How many of you have been on there and seen the fact that the last time I looked, which was about a week ago, there was 246 jobs for the Armidale region. So I would encourage you to have a look on there, and when you are talking to your associates and friends and companies you deal with, when they whinge about not being able to find staff, Evo Jobs is a free solution that your council is providing. We need to promote Evo Jobs as a means. The challenge we all face, and this is why we're having a discussion about how we can get better value out of Evo Jobs, is about how we can help promote it. One of the things we're talking about is how we can work with the real estate agents to pick up information about people who have moved here and why they have moved here. Having done expos for 12 years, it's extremely difficult. But if we can improve our working relationships with real estate agents, we can begin to get some feedback. So there's some of the things we are looking towards, and I'm confident that we can make the Evo City site work better for us, but it will also require the Mayor and Mr Lawrence to put the pressure on to get some new outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Okay, those people in for the motion with the amendment, those people for the motion, unanimously carried. Thank you. I 11.1, review of street trading policy. I might just ask our CEO to provide some background comments.
Through you, Dr. Mayor, if I could ask Ambrose Hallman to perhaps provide some context and be available for clarification, recognises the complex matter that's been some time in the gestation.
Thank you very much. This policy coming up today is proposing to put the local approvals policy out on public exhibition to seek comments from the community. This was presented to Council about October last year. At that Council meeting, Council resolved to refer it to the the Business Advisory Committee, who have been involved in drafting some amendments to the policy. Essentially, the policy is proposing that the majority of street trading activities will be exempt from approval under Section 68 of the Local Government Act across the local government area. So we, from a approvals perspective, I've often said this, we're not really value adding in that process. So we're better to take a back seat and let people just comply with the exemptions. So we're now seeking the community's feedback.
Just before we do move in second, if you don't mind, Mr Ambrose, there was that clarification just required about in the report about the maps. If you just want to clarify to the councillors, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's two maps, one of the B3 and B4 zone in Armidale City and a outline of an area here in Guyra. They're tabled as attachment or figure 3 and 4, and prior to that there is a picture that tries to explain in plain picture text what all the wording is saying, so that a member of the public can say, I'm in this area in Guyra, I have a footpath out the front, this is where I can put my tables and chairs, and this is where I need to keep my pedestrian walkway available. So we've tried to provide a picture that explains all the words in an easy format. However, in doing that, I think we've not labelled that well enough. So we're proposing that the plan we put on exhibition, we would just modify slightly to make that very clear as to where they apply.
Thank you, Ambers. A picture's worth 1,000 words, so yes, you tried to, but I found it a bit confusing myself, but that could be just me. So, is there a question? Otherwise, I'll just...
Councillor
Bailey. Councillor Bailey, your microphone again.
It's failing. It must be my heavy fingers. Are we proposing that traders who have space inside the mall to serve coffee won't be charged for that? Or are we saying, I thought it was to be said that that's going to be coming up in fees and charges in July?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I'm actually proposing that the policy, the local approvals policy, is a policy that exempts or allows council to exempt and set the assessment criteria for approvals required under Section 68. It's not the legislative framework for council to charge a fee as a landowner to people occupying public space. That's better done through a licence and through the fees and charges that are adopted each year by council in the management plan process.
You're saying you will look at it and make a recommendation and go forward in fees and charges?
We can consider that and present some options to council through the fees and charges process.
Okay, Councillor Tiley's moved. Councillor Murat's seconded. Councillor Tiley? Councillor Murat? Anyone else to speak for? Okay, anyone wish to speak against? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Councillors, this is in your supplementary agenda, 11.2, which is Planning Decision Draft Amendment to Armidale Generic Local Environmental Plan 2008. I will also remind you that as a planning decision, we will have a division on this. So can I have a mover, please? Councillor Withers. A second. Councillor Murat. Councillor Withers.
I'd like to move the motion as is written and add in an amendment, if I can, please.
Councillor Withers, you're the mover, so you can amend. It will require Councillor Murat's
I'll give you the amendment, Councillor Murat, and you can make your decision from there. Oh, thanks. But I'll try it anyway. It's already on there in the yellow. Thanks, Jess. And the reason why I've put that on, having today looked at the report and the attachments and everything else in regards to that area, was a bit concerned about, let me just make sure I've got it right there, the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Assessment part of it. So I'd like to see a bit more done on that when it goes to the next part of the planning or next part of the stage of whatever's going on up there. My concerns are based around the fact that the people who did the original assessment aren't from the local area, so don't have an understanding of the local sites and significance and everything else. And their community consultation consisted of a few members of one family. So the process wasn't really that strong. So I'd like to see the process be a lot more in-depth in the next stage. And also, as part of that report, there was, from memory, the recommendation that there would maybe a low chance of Aboriginal remains, but unfortunately, due to some of the circumstances in the past of this country and undocumented massacres, it's very hard to say when and where human remains will be found. So I'd like to see something done in regards to that from the proper professional people, just to make sure that it's all clear in that area on the next stage. So that's why that amendment's there.
Councillor Morat, you happy with that amendment? Okay, speaker for, Councillor Morat, you wish to speak for the motion? Hang on, Councillor, thank you. Your microphone, Councillor Morat.
This is a planning matter that I believe the staff have gone through quite thoroughly. I've read it. It's got stuff in there about contributions from the developer, which I'm fairly happy with. And if Councillor Withers is happy with the developer addressing the issues around the Aboriginality of the site, then I'd like to get my fellow councillors to support this project. Thank you.
Speaker for the motion, Councillor O'Brien.
I'd just like to say I'd like a capital A for Aboriginal in both those, both places it was there. Just like you would have French, English, Irish, capital A. Thank you.
So, as speaker against the motion, otherwise I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Oh, sorry, can you hold your hands up please, because it is a division. Carried unanimously. Thank you. .3, which is the local approvals policy, solid fuel heating appliances. Can I have a Councillor, you wish to question Councillor O'Connor?
No, I'd like to move it. I would like to not move it. I would like to move an amendment to bring it into line with the other item which we deferred.
It still has to be moved and seconded first.
I don't think so. Oh, well, I'm happy to move it, but with an amendment that it be deferred along with 8.3, thank you. And on the same basis.
Right. So you'll make an amendment that it be delayed until it's motion. So
sorry, it's a motion that this item be deferred
to what was the
and dealt with in conjunction with, thank you, Councillor Doddy, with item 8.3.
Right. So do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Withers. Councillor O'Connor, you wish to speak for?
Really, I only want to say that this is just part of the whole issue that we're dealing with and we started to deal with in 8.3. I don't need to repeat myself other than to say it's complicated. This approvals policy relates to the installation of new wood heaters. I understand there's around about 50 a year being approved at the moment, and that, by its very nature, without any other changes, is going to actually increase the amount of emissions that are in those sensitive areas in urban Armidale. So yes, we need to get on top of this, and can we do it all together on the same basis as I argued with item 8.3, wait for the Air Quality or Wood Smoke Advisory Group to report, and let's deal with it in globo. And in the meantime, I think we can look at, we can be thinking about this in a constructive and innovative way. Thank you.
Councillor Withers.
Refer to my comments on 8.3.
Anyone wish to speak again for it or against the motion? I'll put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Councillors, we move on to item 12.1. Now, I propose at this rate, we go until 6 o'clock and we have a 5-minute break, because I think the rest of it's still going to take quite a while, so a 5-minute break might help us as we get older. So 12.1, which is appointment of council representative on New South Wales Public Libraries Association. So can I have a mover, Councillor O'Brien? Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Moran. Councillor O'Brien? Yes.
Yes, I support Councillor O'Connor's nomination as elected representative for library. She's a good choice. She's very learned. Okay, she's got the right committee. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Murat? Comment, Mr Mayor.
As Speaker for the motion. Against? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried.
I'll move 12.2. I think it's an excellent report and I commend the writer. It's a great initiative.
Second for that, Councillor Murat. Councillor Tyler, you're happy with what you said? Councillor Murat? Anyone else speak for?
I would like to speak for, because the museums is part of the culture and heritage. The officer here is the officer here is doing a great job, and I just want to express my appreciation for bringing our museums policies into the modern era. Thank you.
A speaker against? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, Councillor O'Connor, if you can just bring your mic closer to you. I must admit I had a little bit of difficulty hearing, so I'm just not sure what's going to come across in the transcripts. Going on to 13.1 for information, CAS investment report. Can I have a mover and a second, please? Councillor Murat, Councillor Withers, Councillor Murat.
No comment, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Withers.
No comment, thanks.
Speaker for? Against? I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Unanimously. 13.2, which is the cash and investment report for January 2019, and you've got the recommendation there. Those, Councillor Murat, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Murat.
Comment, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Bailey. Speaker for. Speaker against. Councillor Bailey, Murat, you turn your mic off too, please. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Sorry, Councillor Tony. Oh, it's got to slow down here a bit. Item 13.3, which is the Councillor Induction and Professional Development Program, which is a request that one of the councillors had last year. So can I have a mover to Councillor Withers, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Withers?
I'll move this motion, but I also have a bit of a question in regards to while I move it. Noted out of the reports that, if I'm on the right one here, that each councillor gets $2,000 for travel and attendance at different shindigs and things like that. I noticed that some councillors have gone over, where councillors such as myself and Martin haven't spent any money. Does that mean that we are now, with our budget constraints, not allowed to go on anything that we need to? So I'll move that motion with that question, so that hopefully that question will get answered by the motion being moved.
Councillor Withers, your microphone, please. Just might ask our CEO just to clarify the position.
It's probably fair to say that it's fair to say that there's no absolute prohibition on councillors going for training, conferences or seminars, and they are considered on a case-by-case basis. it's fair to say that a lot of training, conferences and seminars have been prohibited to staff, or we've not sent staff on those as part of our cost-saving measures to achieve a better than budget deficit.
Councillor Bailey. Anyone wish to speak against? Councillor O'Connor.
Look, I would just like to put a question on notice in relation to this item. I had prepared something, but I'm not going to put it because we've got a heavy load already. But what I would like to put as a question on notice is when will the individualised...
So, Connor, just if you can just bring your mic down. When you put your head down, you...
Oh, sorry.
Just...
It's hard because I can't see what I've written because I've got no glasses. I can read. I just need some aids related to age. I just want to ask the question. There's mandatory requirements in relation to not only induction and pre-election events, but also ongoing one-to-one counsellor professional development, and that actually requires, under the Act and the regulations, that each councillor go through a process and the mayor go through a process of identifying their professional development needs. So my question on notice is, when will that happen?
SEO?
Those guidelines came in 2018, and we weren't proposing to actively implement that until the 1920 budget, as the training and expenses for 2018 had largely been used as has been shown in that table. So it'll be from the 1st of July.
Well, thank you for the answer. Talk later.
Okay, since there's been no one speaking against, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Carried. Oh, I thought you were asking a question, sorry. My apologies. I'm just about to say, in that case, we have to have a right of reply. Councillor Witters?
Good, because I had something else to say here in regards to the fact that Councillor Martin and myself still haven't been able to spend any money. Maybe next time, in the next couple of months or whatever, that we maybe, if you think there's something going on, you might want to ask us whether we've got something going on first, maybe? I don't know. That'll do.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. Okay, moving on to item 13.4, Code of Conduct Complaints. And you might...
Move the recommendation.
Sorry. Councillor Tiley, Councillor Morat, Councillor Tiley, any comments? No, Councillor Morat. Speaker for, speaker against. Put to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. I'm flat out writing down the mover and the seconder to keep up the pace. 13.5, which is the Economic Development Strategy Review. And two parts, so I'm going to move, please, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Gillespie, Councillor Bailey.
This was developed by Councillor Gray and is a good ready reckoner for us to keep us on track, and we've found it very useful, and we're continuing to work on it to ensure that we stay on the priority list.
Councillor Gillespie.
Nothing to say.
Speaker for.
I would just like to move an amendment.
Councillor O'Connor.
The amendment would be to delete paragraph B and replace it with that the review be the subject of a workshop for all councillors, and that question, and C, that the question of future reviews be deferred to the first ordinary council meeting after that workshop. Sorry, yeah, that the question of future reviews.
So Councillor Bailey, this is an amendment. Are you happy with that change? So we've got to deal with the amendment. So, do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor O'Brien. So, Councillor O'Connor?
Could I speak to the motion first?
It's an amendment. We've got to deal with the amendment. Then we'll deal with the motion. Councillor O'Connor?
Mayor, with respect, he can speak next against the amendment in favour of the motion.
Oh, right. So I will now speak briefly. Look, my concern is that economic development, it should be a matter for all of us. And whilst it's great to delegate, I really think that all councillors need to be involved in looking at strategies for economic development. We all represent, to be honest, different sectors of the community, and this subject impacts on everybody. And I think that having some time to discuss that economic development strategy, rather than have it sort of hived off to one particular committee, would provide more transparency and a better level of participation for all councillors in this really important matter of economic development. And look, once we do that, let's just resume and go forward. That's all.
Councillor O'Brien?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think that if we, if you have a particular group of people that come from a particular background, they're more likely to make decisions in a particular way. So I think if we spread that around more broadly, you tend to get a perspective that might benefit the whole of the community. So yes, I'm persuaded by that.
A speaker for the amendment? A speaker against?
Can I just check with the staff? I thought we did a regional growth workshop, the economic development strategy workshop last year for all councillors. Clarify that.
Through you. Yes, we did late last year.
My concern, Mr. Mayor, is I've got an interest in lots of things, but you can't be all things to all people. I think we've got, I can't remember, 12 committees. Does that mean that every time the Arts Committee wants to do something that we've got to be consulted, we've got to be involved? You know, I think we've got to be prepared to allow the committees to do their work and then they report back to council. You know, I've tried to be open and transparent. I did a session down at the VIC before Christmas where all the councillors were invited to come and learn about some of the work of the VIC. You know, I have a fundamental problem that, you know, if anybody talks to me, I give them information, I tell them what we're working on, I tell them what strategies we're working on, and I just want to be involved in what, you know, we have a big enough committee as it is without having to go to more work. I'm happy to brief and to talk to people on a regular basis. All it requires is a phone call if you want me to. I'll even write an email every so often to keep people informed of what's going on. In actual fact, I have a media release that I'm working with the Mayor on to show that we're presently working on $400 million worth of capital items in this council area at the moment. And that's from the last 6 months to the next 6 months. And any community that can show $400 million is doing pretty well in terms of economic activity in the region.
So you've had your right to reply to it. So I'll put the amendment as up there. Those in favour of the amendment? Those.
Mr. Mayor, that wasn't point of order, but that was a speech against it. But there may be somebody else who wants to speak for it.
I did ask for someone to speak for, and there wasn't one. So I
think Councillor Robinson wants to speak for the amendment.
I'm sorry, but I I moved across, and Councillor Bailey, he has the right to reply. So, is there another speaker for the motion, for the amendment? Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, I think having heard the debate, I agree with Councillor O'Connor that economic development is such an important strategy that we all need to be informed, and we all need to have some participation in the reviews. It doesn't have to be a big effort or a big issue, but if we're not involved and there are substantial changes, then it could certainly make a difference to our strategy, and it could be worse for the community than if there's no involvement. So I believe that in this case, because of the sheer importance of the issue, we should all be involved and we should all have an opportunity to participate as well as just be told the issues.
Thank you. I'm a little bit concerned that I've been drinking too much water, so can we maybe wrap this one up? Please, Councillor Tiley,
I'm speaking against the amendment in favour of the motion. I've heard what the speakers for the amendment have said, but in this council we need to develop trust and confidence in all our committees to do the role or the tasks that they've been allotted. We ultimately get the minutes of all those committees, and I'm very confident that Councillor Bailey's committee, if it wanted to change a strategy to any degree, it would make a recommendation to Council. I'd be very disappointed if that didn't happen. So we need to respect the fact, whether it's the economic strategy or whatever strategy, that there's people with expertise on those committees who can advise and inform the governing body, and then we take the ultimate decision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tiley. I'm a little bit concerned that if we go down this line, we're just basically letting everyone go to every committee, and what's the use of committee? So I am similar vein. Anyone wish to speak for the amendment? Okay, I'll put it to Councillor Bailey. Do you want any right to reply to the amendment?
Look, I think I've made my points. I think we've been open and transparent. I will circulate this list of projects. I think we've had open workshops. We've provided reports. We've provided information. And I would encourage the other committees of council to do the similar sort of thing so that we can keep track. So I close the...
Look, on the basis of Councillor Bailey's undertaking to give that information, I'm happy to withdraw the amendment.
Okay, I'll put the vote then for the amendment. Oh, it has been, sorry, we're back to the motion. Okay, speaker for the motion. Okay, move the motion to be put. Let's vote on it then. Those in favour of the motion, those against. So Councillor Connor, you're voting against. I'm sorry, your hand was a bit late. You're voting against? Thank you. Can we have a 5-minute break, please? So, can I have a mover that we do that? Councillor Murat, Councillor Robertson, those in favour? Aye. Let's go. councillors, let's resume. Can I? So I was about to say, can I have a move in a second? We resume standing order. So Councillor Martin, Councillor Robinson, those in favour? Good. Yeah, 13.6, which is the procurement limits that's noted. Councillor Murat, Councillor Martin, Councillor Murat.
There's no change to the existing, Mr Mayor, so...
Councillor Martin. Speaker for, speaker against. Those in favour? Carried.
I move 13.7, Mr Mayor, and say a couple of words if it's seconded.
Right. Councillor Tolley, you're ahead of me trying to flick over the pages here.
Smarten your footwork, Mr Mayor.
Righto, Councillor Tolley move. Councillor Martin.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Tolley.
I'd just like to hand out a bouquet to staff in relation. I'd like to hand out a bouquet to staff in relation to the sale of land for overdue rates. We hadn't had a sale here since 2002. And settle down. And I think that the outcome has been absolutely excellent. My strong view is that we shouldn't wait another 17 or 16 years to have a sale of land for overdue rates. It ought to be Council's policy that we have one every 2 years. I don't want to move that way, but I'd just ask the CEO to take that on board. So instead of having 60 properties, we might have 10 or a dozen, and it's much more manageable. So having said that, well done staff, and thank you.
Councillor Murat.
I just concur with Dr Tolley, thank you.
Speaker for, speaker against. I'll put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. (13.8), which is the quarterly water adjustment. Councillor Murat. Councillor Martin? No? Yes, Councillor. Councillor Murat.
No comment, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak for or against? I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried.
Mr Mayor, I'll move 13.9.
Councillor Tolley moved. Councillor Murat. Councillor Tolley.
Yes, we councillors asked for this monthly report. I see a continuing improvement in the presentation of that report, and I thank the staff for that. At pages, this tells you I've read the business paper, pages 363 and 364 of the attachments, which comprise 391 pages, I might tell you. There's a couple of things which are concerning now. In view of the CEO's comments earlier on the quarterly budget review, I won't go into chapter and verse. There's one issue that worries me though, and that's parks and reserves, where year to date we've spent 332,000 and the budget was only 131. So we're well over already, and I'm wondering what steps you've taken to address that between now and the end of the year.
CEO?
There will be, and there are, a number of items over which, for which there's been considerable expenditure. Some of it, and it's not, the cause of that is not always the same. Sometimes the initial budget was incorrect and has therefore needed to be adjustment at each of the reviews. Other times it has just been grossly underestimated. You can rest assured that all of the service leaders and budget holders have been required to critically examine their expenditure for the rest of the financial year. But an over-expenditure is not necessarily through any profligacy so much as not necessarily having the correct budget in the first place.
Madam CEO, the pages 363 and 364 go to the CapEx budget in part, and I'm particularly interested in hearing more about airport, waste, community development, the finance section, IT, the significant underspend on rural roads, and in general terms the CapEx spend and how we might finish up at the end of the year. So I just flagged that now, Mr Mayor. But having said that, I move 13.9.
Councillor Murat?
None further comment, Mr Mayor. I think Dr Tiley's covered most of the issues I was going to raise. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Okay, I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. We're moving on very quickly to item 16.1, which is the Traffic Committee meeting, 5th of February. So can I have a mover, please? Councillor Martin, Councillor Murat. Councillor Martin? Councillor Murat?
There's a no stopping sign. I think we might want to amend that to no stopping.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Otherwise, I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Item 16.2, which is the Business Advisory Committee. Recommendation there, Councillor Martin. Councillor Murat. Councillor Martin. Councillor Murat.
Could I ask a question, please, Mr Mayor?
Councillor Bailey, yes.
B.1, the mall engagement be placed on hold until after the completion of the master plan. Can we have a timeline on the master plan? It just concerns me that we've had a lot of community members involved in the mall, in ideas and suggestions, and now I think we're doing the right thing by going to complete master plan, but I'd hope that it's not that there's some kind of anticipated timeline when that would be delivered.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. CEO?
The commencement of it is imminent, and I believe our staff are going out for expressions of interest for urban designers to provide their proposals to complete our master plan. I would expect it to occur towards the back end of this financial year and through the 1920 financial year.
For supplementary question, so you're saying it's going to take 18 months?
The key point about the master plan, apart from having a holistic view of the Armidale region and the key pieces of infrastructure within the Armidale region, is the level of consultation that will occur, and good master plans and good urban designers undertake extensive community engagement in a process to develop that master plan. While I wouldn't necessarily expect it will take a full 18 months, that we're not expecting that we will move quickly through the community engagement phase. And this is much more than a simple public exhibition or community consultation that we may have indulged in the past. This is active participation in the plan, including those groups in the community who may not necessarily respond to surveys or consultation instruments that we currently use, but actual active engagement and identification of those groups to gain their input. And that's not necessarily a quick or slow process. We'd rather be thorough than reach a position with a master plan that hasn't had that thorough engagement of the community.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Otherwise, I'll put it. Those in favour? Hang on. Yep. I'll put it again. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 16.3, which is the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Robinson, Councillor Murat, Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, we had a very interesting meeting, and there were some very interesting supplementary reports on return and earn and waste, but unfortunately haven't quite made it into this version of the minutes. So if there's any developments or any actions, I'll be very happy to keep the council informed.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Murat.
Okay, speaker for, speaker against. I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. And item 16.4, which is the Regional Youth Advisory Committee. Councillor Witters, Councillor Murat, Councillor Witters.
Just a quick chat again to encourage those involved in other committees and advisory groups to invite members of the Regional Youth Council to come along. The more participation we have from those guys, I think the better off we'll be. If you've had a chance to read the minutes, I'm encouraging them to start to do more proactive things within the community, trying to be more involved and hopefully get them to come to a council meeting very shortly.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. Councillor Murat? Okay, I'll be the same. I'll just put anyone who wants to speak against. I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. 16.5, which is the Regional Growth Advisory Committee. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Murat, Councillor Bailey.
I'll just move the motion. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Anyone wants to speak against the question? Okay, put that. Those in favour? Carried. Item 17, and in matters of an urgent nature. Did I? Oh, sorry. I must have... Community Wellbeing, I'm sorry I didn't have the copy of that, so that's why I skipped it. Sorry. So, the Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee, can I have a mover and a second, please? Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Murat. Councillor O'Brien. They're all together, as from what I see on the paper.
Something. There's a couple of things in there about asking council to do something. What happens with those? Does it just go straight to you, to the executive, or do we talk about it in council? For example, one of them was to ask the council to provide information regarding any assistance in tax rates arrears. So what happens with those? We just haven't had this come before council before. I'm just wondering if you could clarify it to me, what's the process here?
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Your mic, please, and I'll ask our CEO to comment.
Councillors, if the minutes and the recommendations from the committee are adopted, then they become a resolution of council for implementation.
Thank you. Then I've got no further to say except that it's a very good committee and from a broad range of services and providing fantastic insight into what's happening in the community. So that's all.
I just asked our CEO to comment. I don't have the paper in front of me, so it's just trying to get my mind around something. So just ask the CEO to comment on an issue.
Councillors, for your consideration, one of the recommendations from the Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee was to include the Armidale Neighbourhood Centre as a member of that committee, just to alert the councillors to the fact that subsequent to your resolution in December, we are conducting a review of the committees as well as the membership, which we expect to bring to the council meeting of May, I believe, the May council meeting. So you may wish to consider that before any changes in the membership of this committee.
Right, anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Otherwise, I'll put it.
Can I ask a question? Yes. Is the Guyra Neighbourhood Centre a member of the committee?
Somebody from the Guyra Neighbourhood Centre there, but they are, yes.
Okay, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Now we can move on to 17, matters of an urgent nature. Are there any? No. Move on to 18, questions on notice. Question on notice. Okay.
Are there any people here not related to ARC? If I'd ask them to leave. Otherwise, can I have a mover and a second that we move into close? items discussed and moved that the closed session be adopted in open session. Councillor Murat and Councillor Martin. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, that basically is the conclusion of the first meeting for 2019. May I, before we close, there has been a request for an email sent out to you all regarding the new New England Festival, isn't it? Could I ask people that are interested in volunteering time to contact Sylvia? I think it's the contact for it. So if you don't mind just putting your walking boots on or what it might be that's needed to join in. So thank you very much for attending for this meeting, and I hereby close the meeting at, 18:40. Thank you.